To me, the most important poem from World War II is F.T. Prince's Soldiers Bathing. This is a very controversial choice, but I'm not the only one to have made it. There does not seem any general agreement as to who is the greatest poet of World War II. Keith Douglas has been put forward, but sadly he died in battle and very little of his work survives. And I've read a great deal of poetry of this period, but the only poem that remains with me, my favourite, is F.T. Prince's Soldiers Bathing. It is not, from its title, a poem about battle itself, but the aftermath of battle. Prince was a captain in the infantry, and after the war he returned to Academe, where he produced one of the most important editions of Shakespeare's poems. Soldiers Bathing by F.T. Prince. The sea at evening moves across the sand. Under a reddening sky, I watch the freedom of a band of soldiers who belong to me. Stripped bare for bathing in the sea, they shout and run in the warm air. Their flesh, worn by the trade of war, revives in my mind towards the meaning of its strives. All's pathos now. The body that was gross, rank, ravenous, disgusting in the air, act or in repose, all fever, filth and sweat, its bestial strength and bestial decay, by pain and labour grows at length fragile and luminous. Poor bare forked animal, conscious of his desires and needs and flesh that rise and fall, stands in the soft air, tasting after toil the sweetness of his nakedness, letting the sea waves coil their frothy tongues about his feet, forgets his hatred of the war, its terrible pressures that beget a machinery of death and slavery. Each being a slave and making slaves of others, finds that he remembers his old freedom in a game, mocking himself, and comically mimics fear and shame. He plays with death and animality, and reading in the shadows of his pallid flesh, I see the idea of Michelangelo's cartoon of soldiers bathing, breaking off before they were half done, at some sortie of the enemy, an episode of the Pisan Wars with Florence. I remember how he showed their muscular limbs that clamber from the water, and heads that turn across the shoulder, eager for the slaughter, forgetful of their bodies that are bare, and hot to buckle on and use the weapons lying there. And I think, too, of the theme another found, when shadowing another's men's bodies on a sinister red ground, another Florentine, Palaio, painted a naked battle. Warriors straddled, hacked the foe, dug their bare toes into the ground and slew the brother naked man who lay between their feet and drew his lips back from his teeth in a grimace. They were Italians who knew war's sorrow and disgrace, and showed the thing suspended, stripped, a theme born out of the experience of war's horrible extremes, beneath a sky where even the air flowers with lacrimae Christi. For that rage, that bitterness, those blows, the hatred of the slain, what could they be but indirectly or directly a commentary on the crucifixion? And the picture burns with indignation and pity and despair by turns, because it is the obverse of the scene where Christ hangs murdered, stripped upon the cross. I mean, that is the explanation of its rage. And we too have our bitterness and pity that engage blood, spirit in this war. But night begins, night of the mind, who nowadays is conscious of our sins. Though every human deed concerns our blood, and even we must know what nobody has understood, that some great love is over all we do, and that is what has driven us to this fury, for so few can suffer all the terror of that love. The terror of that love has set us spinning in this groove, greased with our blood. They dry themselves and dress, combing their hair, forget the fear and shame of nakedness, because to love is frightening, we prefer the freedom of our crimes. Yet as I drink the dusky air, I feel a strange delight that fills me full, strange gratitude, as if evil itself were beautiful, and kiss the wound in thought, while in the west I watch a streak of red that might have issued from Christ's breast.